Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Mindset Reset Monday. And this week we are talking about changing the narrative, right? We're talking about unlocking your potential. So are you ready to really challenge? I guess I'm asking, are you ready to challenge the stories that you've been told about yourself? This week we are going to dive deep into these false narratives or these lies, right? That have shaped how we see ourselves, which is our self concept, and really kept us stuck, right, in outdated old beliefs, right? The goal for this week is to truly to interrupt the loops of self-limiting stories by choosing to rewrite these. I know that we've been talking, or there has been a lot of conversation around storytelling. You've heard this. We've been hearing it, talking about it, hearing it. You've been talking about it, and I think it's important that you do know that you have the power to rewrite your story. All right, and it may not happen overnight. And that first step to really rewriting is to understand, the current story that you're living out. All right, to understand the current story that you're living out. So here's the truth. Old beliefs aren't true, right? They're just stories that we've been told. Like, your past really doesn't detect your future. You don't need to carry what wasn't meant for you. A lot of us are carrying stuff that's not ours to carry, right? They were passed down to you by somebody who was wounded, right? Your mom, your grandparents, the teacher, right? Somebody inflicted you with the pain that they were carrying. All right. And then in some way, started to carry that pain and possibly started to inflict others, if not yourself, right? It's time to really release the roles that are no longer fit. Okay. All right. So if you're ready to really let go of these false narratives and really have been keeping you small, then I think that this week is truly the conversation for you, because we are talking about releasing these old narratives. Remember, this whole month we're talking about unlocking your potential. All right. On the first week, we talked about uncovering what's been holding you back. Last week we talked about numbing, right? How to stop really numbing and recognizing your patterns. So that was the in, right? So you got you in, and then today we're talking about the you, okay? You in the L, which is right, really releasing, right? Releasing these old narratives. Okay. So good morning. It's Mindset Reset Monday, and today we're going to discuss who told you, right? That was you. All right, it's really time to start changing or challenging the stories that you've been living by. I want to ask you this. How many times have you been told that you were too much, that you were not enough, or that you should just accept things how they are, right? Coming up, you wanted something to change, was doing something, and somebody in some way told you this. All right, today we're going to dive into those limited narratives that you've been carrying and the stories imposed by others and old beliefs that no longer serve your highest and best good. Here's a key insight I want you to think about. You are not the stories others told you. All right. And to unlock your potential, you really have to start questioning these stories or these narratives that really keep you stuck. Here's the sophisticated thing about the mind. It believes it, right? And so in a sense, it's kind of like you're stepping outside of yourself and really looking and saying, what role am I playing? What narrative am I playing out? And that's why information is empowering, but application is even more empowering, because if I know, one, that I'm always playing a role, right? Um, you know, I'm either the main character of this story, right? I'm the supporting cast, right? But life is about storytelling, right? The core belief of life is, what is this role that I'm playing out? And somebody a long time ago understood that if I can give this individual an idea of who they are to serve me, then I can control that. I can control them. And it's really amazing how life has a way of unfolding that we are finding out that, you know what, I have the power to change, right? What I've been told about myself. Because remember, somebody planted a seed or a story into your grandmother's grandmother, right? And then she passed that story down unintentionally, not unintentionally, that limiting story down, right? Not to harm you or anything like that. That's all she knew, right? But technology, right? Studies, right, have allowed us to liberate ourselves and really understand like something very powerful. Okay. Good morning, Miss Jackie. How are you doing this morning? How are you doing this morning? Here's my why. All right, listen, today's session is really about peeling back the layers of inherited beliefs and outdated narratives that has held you captive for far too long. All right. The goal isn't to just bring awareness, right? It's to really activate you. So when you begin to recognize the stories that has been imposed on you, whether it's from your family, whether it's from society, right? Or whether it's from your experiences, they lose the grip on your reality. All right. They lose grip on these stories. That's the they lose grip on reality. But just knowing their there isn't enough. The real shift happens when you when you actively challenge them and really choose a new truth. All right. Listen, I really believe that you deserve to live a life, an empowered life, right? Shaped by what? Shaped by your own truth. Shaped by your own truth, not by the version of that others have told you about yourself. All right. So I truly believe that you have the power to shape your own truth and that truth is not about what others have said about you. All right. Today I want you to I want you to embrace the process of letting go of these false stories or these false narratives so that you can really step fully into your truth and power. All right. As we go through this session, all right, I want you to remember that this is not about being perfect or doing it perfect. It's really about progress. All right. It's about taking bold actions towards what? Your real self, the real you, right? Not the version of you that has been written by others. Now, how do you know the real you from the version of yourself? Because you feel it, right? And a lot of times, the real you is that part of you that you judge, right? It's the part of you that's a little more quirky, that's a little more probably out of line, right? Because it's that 23rd chromosome. It's the thing that makes you unique, right? And that thing that makes you unique is the thing that you've probably been judged about. So if you're the talker, if you're the question axer, if you're the comedian, if you're the strong, whatever that is that makes you unique, right? That's the real you. And there's judgment around exposing that part of you, right? That in some way a culture, family have tried to get you to, I'm gonna use this word like assimilate, but in some way to yeah, into being like everybody else or being like them. And so you have some judgments about the real you. So once we stop the stories about and then the judgments about the real you, then that real person can start blossoming again. I always say, like, it's not about going back, right? There was something that happened that stopped the growth of you, and all we're doing is we're removing that, right? So that you can continue to grow and emerge. So good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning, big little brother, right? Miss Jackie said, I'm blessed. Great thing to know, Miss Jackie. It's a great thing to be a blessing on this Monday morning. All right. It's a great thing to be a blessing on this Monday morning. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you back to Life Lessons with Dr. Sheila Little. If you're new here, I'm Dr. Sheila Little, right? The creator of the Stop and Now method, and the creator of what we call Project Life. Okay. So Life Lessons is a part of Project Life, and Project Life is an initiative where we turn theory into practice. What I've learned is that there's a lot of information out there, right? And how do I take this information and apply it to me, right? And put it into practice in my life. Every person has a different way of delivering information, and I just try to be more integrated. I do feel like um like the Bible say, our people perish because of the lack of knowledge. And so I'm really like the knowledge giver, right? Just like trying to have these conversations and find ways to create metaphors and so you can understand, right, how your mind works, how your body works, and more importantly, be back in relationship with this thing called emotion. Okay. Energy and motion. So many of us have been disconnected because of our traumas, because of things that has happened to us. And so the whole project is to not just give you insight, but also get you back into relationship with your emotions so you can feel safe again, right? Feel safe to express yourself, feel safe to connect. And all of those things that you desire are truly emotional things. And because life has, sometimes provided us with, like I said, some type of I don't know, I want to say bad thing, but life has provided us with some dis-ease, right? We have taken our emotions and we have put them in the back, okay, in the back. And it's time to start putting that to the front. Good morning, Miss Tamika. Good morning, Erica. Erica said affecting generation. Listen, those narratives and those stories are affecting generation after generation after generation. And this is the power of understanding storytelling, because we only know what we know, right, until we know something different. All right. And our grandparents or our forefathers, they only knew what they knew, right? And they did the best they knew how to do with the information they had, right? Now we can take a whole lot of time and try to unpack that and talk about that, or we can accept that as truth. Listen, they only knew what they knew, right? They did the best they knew how to do with the information they have. Because I know that information was limited, I can start right there. I don't have to judge it. I don't have to go into it like, oh, that's very liberating to know that what my grandmother taught me was based on her line of sight. Now, mind you, my grandmother was a very wise woman, but she still was limited by her experience. Okay. She got married at 14, 15. She probably graduated third grade, out of third grade. She knew the best she knew how to do. Now, she had a lot of resourcefulness, right? But it was still limited on what her environment. She grew up as a sharecropper, in Panola, Alabama. All right. So that information, now we move up north. She's raising these grandkids and all of that. She only knew so much, but what she wanted for us was expansion, right? She wanted us to expand. She wanted us to have a better life than she did. And the best way that we could do that, and I'm saying all of our grandparents wanted that for us, the best way we can do that is to change our story, right? Change how we see ourselves. Even if that grandparent imposed that limitation on you, it wasn't intentional, all right? It wasn't intentional. It wasn't intentional. And that's the only thing I can say. Like, I know that it felt like it, but they did the best they know how to do. They went and got that switch and that belt and that extension cord, honey, because that was what they knew. The only way that they felt like they could get us to do things was to punish us and to invoke some level of fear. But you know why? Because that's how they were done, right? That's how they were done. Good morning, Derek. That's how they were done. All right. So again, good morning. Good morning. We're on Mindset Reset Monday, and we're talking about these narratives, right? And today's title, again, is Who Told You? Who told you that was you? All right. So let's take our deep breath on this morning. All right. And breathing out. Breathing in this new narrative, right? We're at a new Monday, right? We do have the ability to let go of our yesterdays. Okay. You have that power to do that. So let's breathe in today and all today has to offer, and really breathing out and releasing everything, right? Everything before this moment, right? And really train the brain that it's safe to let that go. Okay. It's safe to let that go. All right. All right. Let's feel our feet on the floor, scanning our bodies real quick. Just feet on the floor, right? Bringing some compassion and love to our bodies. Again, the whole idea of this project was to get back into relationship with us. And that's also feeling our bodies. I say that if you call me Dietrich, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. He said, if you call me Derek one more time, I'm so sorry. Mr. Thomas, Dietrich. It's Dietrich, right? Okay. Yeah, I just read it as Derek, but I apologize. My apologies to you, Dietrich. All right. So So we're going to feel our feet on the floor, right? Really getting present in our bodies, okay? All right. Bringing some love and some compassion to our bodies. So feet on the floor, butts in the seat. If you're standing, feeling your legs, right? Up your spine, feeling all those nerves, right? Our rib cage, feeling those bones that's protecting our intestines, right? Our hearts, our lungs, right? The thing that keeping us moving every day that we don't even have to worry about. And I think that's the power of the body, right? We don't have to worry about that. The body is taking care of itself. All right. Bringing some attention to our hearts, some compassion to our hearts, up our necks. All right. Releasing, feeling that weight on the shoulders. Listen, the weight is going to come. All right. It's not the weight. It's not the fact that the weight is coming. Is what are we doing to release it? A natural part of life is that we're going to absorb life. All right. But we need to take moments to release it. So just releasing that weight. We don't want to judge it of why it's there because it's there. Right. Life is happening. Life is happening to all of us. All right. So let's release that down our arms. All right. Activating our hands on this morning, up our necks, our lips, our nose, our eyes, all right, around our ears, making sure we're softening, all right, the space around our ears. Why? So we can receive, right? So we can receive information and we don't have to be so rigid and resistant against, other people's thoughts and opinions, right? We can receive that. And if it's for us, we can accept it. And if it's not, guess what? We can just let it go. All right. So softening the space around our ears and then bringing attention to our biggest organ, our skin. All right, our skin. Good morning, Pep. Our skin. All right. So again, today's focus is who told you that was you? All right. Who told you that was you? As we press out, all right. If we're feeling a little closed in, let's press ourselves out. If we're taking up too much space, right? We're got too much going on, other people's information. Like, let's bring ourselves back to center. And guess what? Let's just whisper to ourselves that we love each other, that we love us, right? I love you, right? Give ourselves a hug. All right. All right. And let's move forward with our conversation. So today we know it's Mindset Reset Monday. We're talking about stories and triggers on today. All right. So this session is really about challenging these limited narratives that we've been carrying, often without realizing how deeply they've shaped what our self-concept. What does that mean? Shaping our self-concept is, how do I see me? And a lot of times you see you how your community saw you. A lot of times you see you how your grandmama saw you. A lot of times you see you how your teacher saw you, right? And what you haven't done is taken a moment to say, do I really see me? Am I seeing the fullness of me, or am I seeing what other people told me to see in me? All right. What other people told me to see in me. And I know that there's more to be seen. All right. So these narratives are typically learned from early experiences, external influences, and guess what? Outdated beliefs. All right. They act as false truths when internalized, defining how you really see yourself. And when you define how you see yourself, guess what happens? That influences how you interact with the world. All right. But here's the truth, right? You are not the stories that other people have told you. All right. In fact, many of those stories have been handed down to you. They were shaped by your family, they were shaped by society, they were shaped by your culture and your past experiences, but they were never meant to define, guess what? The entirety of you. All right. They were never meant to define the entirety of you. There's something called I want to say it's the jargon window. Forgive me for that first word. I think it's called a jargon window. Anyway, it's like if you think about a window pane, right? I want you to think about a window pane and it has 4 sections, right? So what this theory says is that there's the one section of the things that I know about me, the things that people know about me, that I know about me. So that's the first thing. So it's stuff about me that I know about me and that other people know about me. The second pane in that window, right? Okay. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Dietrich. The second pane in this window, my apologies. The second pane in this window is the things that other people know about me that I don't know about me, right? So those are the gestures, right? That's probably the look that I get on my face, right? Other people can see that stuff about me, but I can't see it about me. All right. There's this other window though, that the things that I know about me that nobody knows about me. All right. There's the stuff that I know about me that nobody knows about me. And then this fourth space is the stuff that I don't know about me and that other people don't know about me either. All right. And that's the space where we grow, right? That's the liberating space. But please know that these two bottom spaces, that there's stuff that I know about me that other people don't know about me, and there's stuff that I don't know about me and other people don't know about me. So that is where my story, that is where I have the ability to rewrite. But so many of us is caught up in this first window, which is the thing that other people know about me. And we're so busy trying to change their mind about us, right? I don't want them to think this about me. I don't want them to feel this about me, or I want them to think this, or I want them to feel this. And we're working so hard to shift somebody else's narrative about us versus being. See, that's a lot of doing. That's a lot of do, right? Versus being, right? Being present with the things I know about me and being comfortable with the things I know about me, and really growing into this. Okay, what is that part of me that I don't know, that other people don't know either, right? And sitting in this space of curiosity, all right? Because it's so much more to us as human species, and because there's so much more to us, then you got to know that there's what? So much more to you. All right, so much more to you. So the purpose of this session is to truly uncover and question these stories, right? Whether you're aware of them or not, these stories can be running the show. And I'm gonna say can be, but I'm gonna say these stories are running the show and really detecting your actions and your beliefs. Okay, for example, you may have been told as a child that you were too sensitive, right? Or that you were too much, and may have internalized that, leading you to what? Self-doubt and overcompensating. All right. So a big part, you may have been the emotional one. You're too sensitive, right? And that judgment, what it might have made you flee the other direction, right? So because you're sensitive, now you're going to appear hard, right? So there's this part of you that you have held captive, this sensitive part of you that you won't let out because it's been judged harshly, and now you're judging it. But that part of you needs to be unleashed again, right? It needs to be able to grow. It needs to be able to spread wings, because that's a part of who you are. All right. Maybe you were told you were too much, or you think you too much, or whatever. So then you what? Try to downplay yourself. You try to, not do too much because of what somebody else told you. And I say a big part of our limitation is that people have a way of making you feel uncomfortable when they start feeling uncomfortable. All right. So when you start to have a conversation with them and it starts to make them uncomfortable, then they're like, you crazy, you weird, you this. And it's all just a response to their level of comfortability with your presence. All right. And for some reason, the way the mind works is that we will start to be like, am I crazy? Am I this right? And in some way start to identify with those judgments, not really realizing, oh, they're uncomfortable and they're projecting their uncomfortableness on me. So that's the easiest thing for them to do, or that's the thing that they have been trained to do. They don't know how to do nothing else but to call you weird and crazy and and something to get you to stop. So when you stop, then their feelings can subside, their uncomfortabilities or whatever that is. Now, am I judging that as right or wrong? No, but I think it's healthy for us to know that. Because if I know that, and you labeling me as weird or too much or whatever, if I have a true understanding that that is you in some way trying to communicate to me that you're starting to feel uncomfortable, emotional intelligence tell me that I don't have to push anymore, right? I can just be like, okay, I don't even have to say, oh, you trying to project that on me. It's just like, oh, okay, well, let me back up. Not let me shrink, but let me back up and respect your space and then respect my space. Because now I don't even have to explain anything to you. You didn't told me where your boundary at, right? In some way, shape, or form, you have communicated that. Now, if that limitation is happening in an intimate relationship, where every time I start to communicate, my partner is shutting me down, right? If that is happening in my job or in my career, every time I go to talk about something that is shutting me down, then that's information coming back to me saying, hey, I'm not saying switch partners and I ain't saying switching jobs, but I am saying, so you need another outlet. You need a space where that part of you can be expressed, right? And a lot of us are not creating that space where that part of us can be expressed. All right. Do we know why lakes exist? You know why lakes exist? Because the water naturally went right into a space. Maybe there was the the water needed to level itself out, so it naturally started to create like this other little space, which we call lakes. All right. All right. We need to start doing that. We need to start allowing that. Hey, you know what? I realize that my relationship is not allowing me to be fully expressed. There's a dam here. I'm realizing that in my job, right? There's some limitations or whatever, but I really need to express this. So now I need to step out, right, and create an avenue. Maybe that's joining some groups. Maybe that's doing some other things so that this part of me can be cultivated. All right. All right. Another thing is you may have been taught that you to stay small or to avoid conflict or to really accept things as they are because that's just how life works. All right. How many of you have been told that, you know, that's this just how life is, right? Stop, don't do that, right? Um, right. Stay small. Don't don't create conflict. I want you to see conflict very different, right? Conflict is what? It's just saying that, hey, there's two opposing thoughts. Now, how we water seeks its own level. Yes, Dietrich. Yes. Um, now how we choose to avoid, how we choose to uh handle this conflict is truly what we call conflict resolution. But guess what? Conflict is going to happen. You know why I know conflict is going to happen? Because I'm totally different, right? My experiences has brought me to where I am today. Your experiences have brought you to where you are today. So we may speak English, right? But we have two separate experiences that we're trying to bring into one, right? It's like if what's coming up in my mind or the image that just came up in my mind, it's like baking a cake, right? So in a sense, you know that the egg is conflicting with the flour and the sugar is conflicting with the with the egg in the flour, right? And the milk is conflicting, right? All of them are different substances. And when you put them in a bowl together, guess what? They're conflicting with one another, right? And what do? We take the beater and we beat them together. As a matter of fact, we actually have a way that in which we do it, right? We add the egg and then we soften the butter and then we put the egg in, the egg, the butter, and the sugar, right? We put that in and we beat it together. But the difference is, right? They're conflicting with each other. And then there's this beat that happens that brings them together. And then we slowly what? Add the flour, right? We slowly add the flour. So the point I'm making is that all of that comes together to make this beautiful, wonderful cake. And a lot of us are not having the beautiful, wonderful cakes, right? We're not creating the beautiful, wonderful cakes because we're not allowing the blending to happen, right? I may be the flour in your life. Somebody else may be the eggs. You may be the sugar, right? And we all come together and we have different perspective, different strengths, right? And we have to figure out how to what? How to come together collectively so that we can what? So we can build together, build a relationship, build a community, build love, right? Build something that's worth what? Eating, taking of, right? Digesting. And a lot of us are looking for other eggs and looking for other flour and looking for sugar. We looking for the thing that matches us, right? So we won't be in conflict. And that's only going to get sugar is only going to do what sugar do. All right. Eggs is only going to do what eggs do. Flour is only going to do what flour does, right? But you put these things together, right? You find a way how to put these things together and you start to build community. You start to build connection. We start to be, and guess what? I don't have to judge you for being sugar. I don't have to judge you for being eggs. I don't have to judge you for being different than me because I understand that when I learn how to come together with you, that what we're going to create is something very different than you or me could have ever had. Does that make sense? All right. And this is the power of changing your story, right? Because you may judge your eggs. And again, I'm using this metaphor, right? You may judge your eggs as something bad, or you may judge sugar as bad, or you may judge flour as bad because somebody told you that. And I'm saying, hey, this is just not true. This is just not true, right? Everybody has something to offer, all right? And we have to realize how to integrate, right, these things, right? And incorporate these things into our life because our souls need that, Our souls desire that. That's why we're feeling the way we're feeling, but we're not allowing space and room, okay, to grow. All right. So here's some core questions or some insights. You are not defined by your limiting stories of others. All right. The real empowerment comes from really rewriting those outdated narratives and questioning the ones that have been placed on you. All right. This is your invitation. All right. This session is your invitation to really reclaim what your true power and create a story that aligns with who you truly are. All right, not what others have said. So I want you to ask yourself, who told you the things about you, right? And the way you see yourself. I want you to say, is this true? All right. And what would happen if I stopped believing it? All right. Because and here's the thing. Um, the today we're looking at these self-limiting internalized beliefs like like I'm not good enough, I'm too much, I'll never be successful, or defining what success really is, right, by other people's measurements. And is that really what I feel like success is, right? Or I need to prove my worth through achievement. All right, I want you to think about what happens when you challenge these beliefs. All right, so our quote on this morning is, who told you who told you who you are? And is it true? All right. This really is a thought provoking question I want you to ask, right? Because it really focuses on what has been passed down to you. All right. So here's a real life example. Rachel, right? Rachel, she always believed that she wasn't good enough because of a comment made to her by a teacher when she was younger. All right. This one comment became her truth. All right. It shaped how she showed up in every area of her life. But today, Rachel challenged that story. All right. So today, I'm working with Rachel to really challenge this story. And she says to herself, or she asked herself, who told me that I'm not good enough? Now, Rachel is now rewriting this narrative to really embrace what her worth and taking ownership of her life. And guess what? It's not easy because every decision that Rachel has made up until now was based off of this opinion of a teacher, right? And her thoughts was either her actions was either challenging what this teacher said to prove this teacher wrong, right? Or in alignment with the teacher because the teacher said it. All right. So I want you to think about that one thing that you were told about you that either you're challenging to prove wrong, like I'm gonna prove to you that this is just not true about me, right? Or that you are not doing because you have said that it's true. All right. You have said that it's true. Here's the thing about both sides of this. We're not gonna judge it, but I do want you to know here's the truth about both sides of that. Because that is the focus, that is a core belief. All right. When I was 17, my mom told me that I would never find a husband, right? Like, you would never find a husband because you don't clean up. Y'all hear me talk about domesticated all the time. My house is clean, okay? On the today, all right. But like I said, I worked so much that there was things that just went out of, that just didn't get addressed. Okay. So I had to put in some standard operating procedures of how things were going to get done in the house, especially growing up with boys. Like, if you guys don't know, I have 3 boys, right? And they all still live with me. All right. So it is a lot of work getting them to follow up and do what they do. Anyway, but my mom told me, she's like, you're never going to find a husband because you don't clean up. And I said to myself, I'm gonna prove you wrong, right? I'm gonna prove you wrong. And that statement truly created, like, when I got into my first relationship, how I performed, right? Because I wanted to prove to my mama that I can get a husband, right? And that I didn't have to do some things, or that I was going to do some things, right? To really prove to her. All up until my 30s, I didn't really understand how that that statement had imprinted me, who I was and how I moved. And in my 30s, I really had to unbraid myself from her ideology of what it required um, from a woman to get a husband, right? Because in that message, it was so much, right? So what she was really, what I interpret her as saying was that you had to be a certain way, right? You had to cook, you had to clean, you had to be this way to attract a husband. And the judgment for me was, I knew that wasn't me, right? So I knew I was the worker. I knew I was the, what we would call the prudent wife. Okay. Look it up in the Bible, right? I was the solution focused one. I was the, hard worker. I was the strategic planner, right? I wasn't thinking about the dishes. So what that meant for me was that I'm probably not going to have a husband, right? And what I realized was that was my mom's ideology of what it took to get a husband. Because guess what? That was her skill set too, right? She was very much the domesticated woman. All right. And I had to unbraid myself from that in my 30s, right? And really come at the end of my 30s and say, this is who I am, and I'm going to embrace this woman, this woman who is very much prudent in my ways of being business savvy and, working outside the house and things like that. So I want you to think about what was something that you were told about yourself that you have to unbraid, right? Because it's just not true. Now, do I think my mama told me that to hurt my feelings? No, I really think she was telling me that because she wanted me to get married and she wanted a man to take care of me or something like that, right? That was her dream and she passed it off on me. But because of how it was said and where I was at, I'm like 17, 18, right? It really took a hold on me, right? It really took a hold on me. So what is that thing, right, that you've been told? Like I said, I work with hundreds, thousands of individuals, and it's this one thing or this one belief or this one statement or this one situation that imprinted them so much. And in life, guess what? They're just repeating it over and over and over again. And if we can get there, right, and if we can unbraid, and I'm saying unbraid again because when I'm talking about braiding, I'm saying, listen, you've woven this thing together, right? It's an extension. If you think about weave or something like that, right? It's been put on you, right? And you've woven yourself into it. And when you braid something, it's hard to, a braid is very thick, right? And so we got to unbraid that, right? And that's the work. And if you guys have ever had braids, right, it ain't easy taking them down. I mean, even when you cut, right, it's still going to take time. All right, we're just not pulling it out. All right, so we have to unbraid ourselves from these old narratives. All right, so there's a few important things that I want you to consider about these false narratives. Okay. But before we do that, let me talk about this. So she asked herself, who told her? So I'm talking about Rachel. So Rachel believed that she wasn't enough, right? This person told her this, and how this teacher told her that she wasn't enough, right? And when she started to ask herself, who told me that I wasn't enough, she had the power to really start rewriting her story, all right? So the stories that we have inherited often shape how we see ourselves and really limit us from fully stepping into our power. But today is about identifying which story you need to stop telling yourself, all right? So let's do our heart check-in on this morning. All right. I want you to think about this one belief, right? What's one belief about yourself that no longer serves you? All right. What's one belief about yourself that no longer serves you? And I want you to write that down. All right. I want you to write that down. All right. And while you're thinking about that one belief, I want you to consider these things. All right. When we talk about releasing the false narratives, right, and transforming your stories, the importance of self-awareness. All right, you hear me talk about awareness a lot because it's the art of life, right? ART, becoming aware, releasing, and taking a different action. That's the true art of life. Okay, before you can change your story, you really need to become aware of it. All right. And a lot of us are not, again, aware of the stories that we're telling ourselves because we haven't sought out the help, right? We haven't sought out the help, which can serve as a mirror to really help us see ourselves. All right. Often these narratives that we carry are so ingrained, right? They're so braided that we don't even realize that we're living them out. All right. This requires really slowing down and really looking at your thoughts, your behaviors, and your reactions with what? Curiosity. All right. Being curious. Why am I moving like this? Why am I saying this? Right. Right. And start asking yourself, is this belief really mine, or was it given to me by someone else? All right. Awareness is the first step in transformation. All right. I want you to know that the cost of staying, and there is a cost in staying in your old stories. All right. Holding on to really outdated and limiting narratives can have a profound effect on your emotions, um, on your physicality, on you physically, and on you mentally. All right. All right. It keeps you stuck in a cycle of self-doubt, of fear, and even chronic stress, you guys. All right. You might not always realize it, but your body and your mind are consistently trying to live up to the stories, right? To these old stories. So when you release them, you actually create a space, a piece of clarity, and of true growth. All right. The cost of staying in those stories isn't just emotional. It affects your health, your relationships, and your future. And so many of us, we want something different, but you have to change your story. So that question of who do you need to become? All right. When you think about um the life that you want, and then you like, okay, I'm gonna tell you a big part of the reason why you don't have the life that you want is because you're tied to a story of who you are today. All right. And when you think about this life you want, I don't care if it's financially, if it's relationally, if it's in your, you got to go back and think about what is my belief about that, you know? So I can say I want to be in love, right? I want to be in love, and I want a man to love me and accept me for who I am. But if I have a belief that that man doesn't exist, or men don't really support women that way, right? Or men, then guess what? I am direct conflict, right, with the thing that I desire the most. And here's the thing, for me to experience that type of relationship, I have to release the story and my belief about men. Now, guess what? Guess what's hard about that? Because in my life, and I'm giving this as an example, in my life, if I've only experienced men like that, right? Men who were selfish, men who were egoic, men who were cheaters, men who were that, right? Then my mind is like, that's hard to release that story, because that is every man I know is a cheater, a liar, selfish or whatever, right? So it's contradicting for me to release this story and even hope that I will get this relationship. And this is what this is what I would have to offer you with that. And the reason why those are the men that you've only met is because that is what you believe. And so that is what you see in the men. And so for you to see a different type of man, then you would have to what? Change your belief, or at least get curious enough, right? To say that it's possible, right? It's possible for this to exist. This also happens with our money, right? I want you to know that everyone carries a money story, right? And so in your money story, you can want to be wealthy, you can want to be financially stable and all of that, but you may have a core belief that money is the root of all evil, right? That it's easier for the camel to go through an eye of a needle than it is for a man to enter uh a rich man to enter into the kingdom of heavens, right? This is something that you were taught in church. All right. You may have a belief around money that um more money, more problems, right? So all of these beliefs around money, but you have a desire to be wealthy. Well, those are in conflict, right? Or that people only with you because of your money, or just all of these beliefs about money. So guess what? If you want to be wealthy and have a supportive group of individuals, and you know you have to start to shift, right? You have to start to believe that God does want me to live in abundance, that it's not sinful for me to be rich, right? So you have to start to change some of these core beliefs, and then get some evidence of it. If that makes sense, put a heart in the chat for me. So these are the stories that we've been told, right? And we're paying this cost because we don't really even realize that, hey, I got a conflicting story that either I caught or that was taught that is against the thing that I want to do, be, or have. All right. I want you to know that healing is a process, right? Not an event. So changing your story and releasing false narratives isn't something that happens overnight. Again, it's an unbraiding process. It's a process nonetheless. All right. And there's a lot of moments where these old narratives may creep back in. Okay. All right. Healing involves patience and forgiveness, especially with yourself. So be compassionate with you as you start to unlearn old patterns and beliefs. All right. Remember, it is not about being perfect. It's really about progress. All right. It's really about progress. All right. Um, I do want you to understand that in this thing called life, the role of your support system is so important. All right. As you start to shift or as you start to change and as you start to like expand your territory. All right. So the process of rewriting your narrative can feel overwhelming. All right. It can create some angst. All right. It can create some angst, and that's okay. All right. Because any emotion that's coming in your body, you can breathe through it. Okay, you can breathe through it and allow it to release. So one of the most powerful ways to really navigate this process is with support, right? It's with a person that's willing to hold space for you, right? While you're sitting in that emotion. It's having a support group that understands like, okay, this is who you are becoming, and I'm gonna always just see the person that you're becoming, right? And I'm going to release anything outside of that. All right. So whether this is a coach or therapist or a community, having others who believe in the potential, right, can really help you through these tough times. Because what they doing, they're reminding you of who you were called to be, right? They're not holding you captive to who you were, right? They in front of you saying, hey, this the finish line. You can do it. You can do it. Come on, right? They're not saying, why are you trying to do that? Right? What's so wrong about what you have, right? So they are actually on the side of the life of your becoming and not in the back end. And this is the importance of support because guess what? You're not always going to believe. You're not going to always believe it's possible, right? You're going to get overwhelmed. And so you need to be able to connect. To me, it's what's coming up is like your battery dying in your car, right? And what do you need, right? You need another battery. To what? To get a boost, right? So you put the clips on, right? And you like, listen, my battery low. I can't start up, right? Can you come and give me a boost? Right? That's what your support system is there for. Because sometimes, you know, that old story running in the back of your mind, that it's draining your battery, right? Because it wants to hold on. It's in the background running and running and running, right? And you don't even know it is until you go to try to move, until you go to try to start up and go to this new place. And it's like you can't go. And you need a support system that's going to boost you, that's going to help you expand into these new areas that you seek to have and grow. Okay. All right. And this is okay. And this is again changing that narrative of you do need help. All right. So stop saying that. Stop saying, I don't need no help. I don't need nobody. Yes, you do. You absolutely do. Now, you need to be very specific about the type of people you need, though. And you need that person that's going to serve as an anchor to the person you're becoming, not the person that's going to serve as a weight to the person that you were. All right. And that's two different people, two different mindsets, and two different type of communities. Now, a lot of our communities are holding us to who we were. All right. And that's why we have to step out our comfort zone, right? And really indulge in other communities, right? That's gonna feed who we are today and who we're becoming. All right. Listen, identity is fluid, it's not fixed. This is another thing I want you to know. So, one of the most freeing realizations is that your identity is fluid. All right. You're allowed to change. What does that mean? You're allowed to change. All right. It's fluid. It's not fixed. So the person you are today can change. The weight you are today can change. The way you think today can change. It's fluid. All right. So you are allowed to change, evolve, and really redefine yourself as many times, guess what, as necessary. As many times as necessary in your life. Okay. Just because you've been something for years, guess what? It doesn't mean that you have to stay that way. All right. You get to redefine who you are. And so many of us, because we are in communities and because we're so communal, right? And the person that you are today is serving a purpose in your current community. So when you go to change that, it is a threat to that ecosystem. All right. So if you um are this way and you're like, hey, I know that I've been your right hand man, but I want to go left, right? Know that the ecosystem that you were right for is going to have some resistance to you going left, because you being right supported that ecosystem. Okay. And it is a threat. And so you're going to get some resistance. Now, guess what? They're not resisting in a sense you, right? The support, though, that you provided is triggering them. And that's why we don't got to take it personal. All right. It's kind of like, I guess, what's coming up in my mind. If you ever played, what is that one game where you put all the blocks up and you start to pull the Jenga? Have you ever played Jenga? Okay, so if you ever play Jenga, Jenga starts off with a block, right? And then you slowly start to pull like these things out, but you're doing it because you don't want the blocks to fall. All right. So when changes like that, all right. So your current ecosystem is like the Jenga, all right, and you start to pull yourself out because you're changing. All right. Know that every time you pull yourself out, you are what? You are causing this current block to possibly fall, to possibly be dismantled. And the way you feel when you start to pull that out is the way the ecosystem feel: nervous, jittery, right? Right? Because they like, ooh, is that the piece that's going to finally what? Break us, break this relationship or whatever. That is a part of the process, though, because but the truth of the matter is that you get to change however many times you need to change for your life. All right, you get to change however, because just like when that whole thing falls apart, guess what you get to do? Put them pieces back together again, right? To do this new thing. All right, and then we pull out and we pull out, and then we get to build again. All right, does that make sense? If that makes sense, put it in the chat for me. All right. So your identity is fluid. It's not fixed. All right. All right. So you get to redefine who you are. So don't be afraid to rewrite your story, um, even if you've been living a certain way for a long time. Your future self is waiting for you to step into your truth. So Dietrich said it creates instability. It does. It does. And it doesn't just always create instability in your ecosystem, which is your community. It can create instability in you, which is again why you need the support, right, of this community that's helping and assisting you. That's helping and assisting you as you become this new thing. But so many of us are stuck in this fixed person that we was 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Now listen, if you are okay with that person, I'm not talking to you, right? But I'm talking to the person that's like, I'm just not that person anymore, right? But I feel like my community is still wanting me to be this, and I've outgrown that, right? And you're starting to feel guilty, or you're feeling some type of overwhelm or something like that, because you know that you have evolved and changed and you need to be fed something different, but your community still is looking for you to be this old thing. All right. You get to repurpose yourself however many times you need to. Okay. However many times you need to. Letting go of shame. Okay. I want to talk about this because shame often it often comes with releasing your old story. All right. It might feel like you're letting go of parts of yourself that were tied to the survival mechanism. So things that helped you cope or or fit in at one point. All right. So shame is often attached to relieving these stories, because a part of a part of the story that you're releasing or the habits that you're releasing, guess what? They were required. All right. So shame may come with this releasing of stories, right? But shame doesn't serve you anymore. Okay. I need you to know that shame doesn't serve you anymore. When you let go of shame, you really free yourself to embrace the truth of who you are today. All right. Beyond the narratives that no longer serve you. Okay. Reframing as a tool for empowerment. Listen, when you start to notice stories, right? When you start to notice stories you've been living with, reframing becomes an important tool. What is reframing? Seeing it different. All right. Reframing is about really looking at an old limiting story and really changing your perspective on it, right, into an empowered one. For example, all right, if you have a story like I'm not enough, you can reframe that to I'm worthy of growth, love, success in every step that I lead. I want to give you an example of another reframe. So you remember that if you break a mirror or a glass or something, like you will have 7 years bad luck, right? So this was something that was taught to me. And me and an individual was in the office, and I had a mirror or a glass and it was finna break. And she was like, "Oh my God, I'm so glad that didn't break." Right. And instantly I thought of a reframe. And for me, the reframe was, well, if it would have broke, then I would have just told myself, "Good job, Sheila. You're breaking glass ceilings." Right. That was the reframe that I chose to take whenever I break glass or break mirrors or break whatever. Right. Because what I realized is that story of breaking glass and things like that was a belief that was ingrained in me, like all the time. Like if you break a glass, break a mirror, you got 7 years bad luck. And I found myself breaking a lot of mirrors just by mistake. You know what I mean? So it's like, how can I reframe that so it works for my good? So then when I started to break, like I said, break mirrors, break glass, I'm just like, so I told her, I said, well, if it would have just broke, I just would have told myself that I'm breaking glass ceilings, right? So this is how powerful reframing is. All right. Because when that thing happens, guess what? It's going to bring up the belief. The belief is that if this breaks, then I'm going to get 7 years bad luck. The reframe is I get to, at today, reframe that, right? Like put another frame on that same picture, on that same situation. And that is the essence of life. How good can you reframe a story, right? Something that's happened, you've understood it as bad, 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 bad all this time. And then today you get the power to rewrite that as something good, right? Something that's for you, right? And how do you do that with language? All right. And that's why I encourage you to pick up a book, to read a book, to do that affirmation challenge, right? To, listen to podcasts and things like that, because it gives you new language. And when you have this new language, you're able to reframe. All right. There is a power in self-compassion. So when you let go of your fear, when you let go of false narratives, there will be moments of doubt and insecurity. So this is where you definitely have to have some self-compassion, all right? Because self-compassion allows you to embrace what your imperfections without letting them define you. And this is something really big that I feel like even the reframing, okay? When we talk about self-compassion, it's hard it can be challenging to understand what self-compassion is when we've judged a thing as wrong. Like, I don't want to get compassionate because that's just so wrong, right? Okay, but we can't change it, right? So the only thing I can do at this point is give it compassion, because I can't go back. I can't go back and do anything other than forgive it, let it go. But if I judge it as wrong, again, it's those Chinese handcuffs. I'm resisting that it even happened, right? Or I got some resistance to it. So I can understand that it's out of alignment of what I would have done, right? But I can have some compassion for myself and other people. All right. There is an important thing that we need to do, which is create a new vision for our life. Okay. Once you begin to release old stories, that's the biggest gap that you're going to get, right? Really creating a new vision for your life that aligns with your true potential. So what that new vision is what do I really want? What kind of person do you want to be? And your story doesn't just remove it really gives an opportunity to build the life that you've always desired. And I always say it's so important to know what this new space is going to be like. I give this analogy. Just say you're building a new house, right? You've been living in this old house. This the house your grandma passed down to you. You know every room, every part. This the house that you grew up in or whatever. And now you're going to go build a new house. You don't just go build a new house though, right? You go get an architect, you go survey the land, you go figure out where you're going to move, where that house is going to be, like what type of neighborhood do you want to live in. Then you go get an architect. The architect draw a blueprint, right? Then after you get that blueprint, you go and you get like contractors, right? They pour the foundation down, right? It's a process in building, right? This new space that you're building, okay? And I want you to know it's like that with your life. All right. That it's not just about changing your life. And so many of us just, it's like, I'm finna move, right? I'm finna move. And it's like, well, why are you moving? Okay, and if you're going to move from this space that you've always lived in, what space do you need, right? Do you need more space? Are you looking to downsize, right? These are the questions that you would ask yourself if you move. So if you're trying to change your life, then take the time out to really think about, like, okay, when I'm changing my life, what do I want that to look like? Right? What do I want that to look like? Right? What do I want to be environmentally? Right? What do I want my environment to look like? Right? Foundation. What are some of the core values that I want to be able to stand on? Right? Integritiously, no matter what anybody say. Right? And then you have the structure. Right? Right. So these are the posts. These are the values again that are supporting who I am. All right. And then once we've now put the walls up, right? That's the evidence, that's the behaviors, right? Then aesthetically, right? How do I look showing up? All of that is a part of the rebuilding process, all right, of your life, but it just doesn't happen. All right. And a lot of us, the reason why we're not truly rerouting ourselves, because we may be moving from house to house, but we're really not taking the time because we're more running away from what we don't want than really slowing down and saying, what do I want? And I don't care how bad the situation is right now, I'm not running anymore. I'm going to sit my butt down and I'm going to create and I'm going to take the time out to see what is it that I want, right? And I'm going to give myself a year, maybe 2 years, right? To really write the vision, make it plain, kind of do the steps, right? And then allow myself room for this to blossom. All right. All right. And if I give myself, again, I told you I had a coach that said we underestimate, we overestimate what we can accomplish in 1 year, but we underestimate what we can be in 3 years. And I tell you, I will 90% of my clients that work with me from day one to day three, their life looks 180% different. Why? Because we go through the steps. We go through the steps, and then I provide that support, all right, that they need even afterwards. And so they can tell you that they're different in how they think and how they see, right? But it was something about our interaction, me being the catalyst, and I'm saying the catalyst intentionally, meaning I came into their life and then I left. I came into their life, stirred up something, and then I left, right? And then left their life to them to manage, to grow, to think, right? And they have the confidence in doing that, then I just step in every so often, right? And say, how you doing? What do you need? You know? All right. So listen, the stories that we carry shape our identity. All right. The limiting beliefs we hold um onto the limiting beliefs that we hold on to often block us from seeing our true potential. Listen, when we're consistently carrying someone else's narrative, guess what? We aren't living our own authentic lives, you guys. We're living somebody else's lives. So you've been carrying old beliefs that no longer serve you, and those beliefs can keep you stuck and disconnected from what? From your true potential. All right. But you can change your story today. All right. Rewriting your story is one of the most powerful ways to really step into your full potential. It will liberate you from the lies, okay, from the lies that hold you back and allow you to really live with authenticity. All right, living your truth is empowering. It helps. It helps you to make decisions that align with your highest good and brings you closer to your authentic self. All right. I used to believe that that I used to believe that I wasn't enough for the career that I wanted. But when I confronted this belief, it really changed my story, you guys. And I was able to really step into the role that I had been dreaming about for years. All right. People know that I, used to be a hairdresser, right? And then I became a therapist, and then I became a worked at Delta as a counselor, right? Well, I became therapist, worked at Delta as a counselor. But then, like, when I started this business, it like pressed on every limitation that I possibly could have, right? And it's like, can I really do this? Right. And I had to really start to shift my money story, my beliefs about me, because guess what? The very thing that I was told not to do, and people know when I was little, I talked a lot. So people always say, like, you talk a lot, right? I'm gonna get a podcast, right? And I'm gonna sit right in every word that I say, and I could talk for an hour and a half every day, right? I'm gonna embody that because I know that there was a wound behind that because I got in a lot of trouble, right? You talk too much. You think you know everything, right? You this, you that. And then a lot of that was I was trying to hide behind that. But what I realized is like, listen, that's your gift and sit in it. All right. Sit in it. And so learning to sit in that every day and then encouraging the people that I work with to sit in it, to sit in your gift. All right. To sit in the life that you want, knowing that is going to come with some resistance. And I think that that is the one thing that we have to change, because we want it easy, right? You don't want to uh the thing about it is that you want a life that you don't got to work hard for. You want a relationship that won't challenge you. You know, you want a body that just comes easy, right? And like I said, that man, when that man said, I was watching Myron Golden, and he said, you don't have to teach a kid to lie. But he also said, you don't have to do anything to get weak, right? Your body naturally is going to get weak, but you definitely got to do something to be strong. All right. You don't have to do anything to decay. You could set a tomato and it's going to decay, right? But you definitely have to do stuff to keep stuff alive. All right. So this life that we want, know that it's going to come with some activity, right? It's going to come with some things. He said, you don't got to do nothing to be dirty. You got to, you don't got to do anything to get stinking, right? Like by nature, your body is just going to create a body odor, right? You don't gotta do nothing to do that. You sit around for a couple of days, you're gonna start smelling yourself, right? You ain't done nothing, okay? But you do have to do something to keep a nice fragrance, all right? Because it's gonna wear off. And that's the appetite of life. That's the thing about life, that you constantly have to do something. You got to cook your food every day, right? You got to eat, you got to continue to drink, hydrate, right? And somewhere in our minds, we have been told that life should be easy. And if somebody challenges you in a relationship or at a job, that's a red flag and it's time to kick them off. And, and even the idea of iron sharpening iron, like two strong people, two eggs, sharpening each other. No, 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 no. It's the conflict. It's the differences that make us strong, right? It's in that, and it's in us activating our life every day and doing something, right? And I know that we've been trained because the mind want to conserve energy, right? That's what the motivational triad is all about, right? Conserving energy, running away from pain, and feeling pleasure. Those are the three things that the mind wants to do: conserve energy, avoid pain, and feel pleasure. So what that means is that your job is to create a life where you can conserve energy, right? What you're doing is conserving energy. What you're doing is avoiding pain. And what you're doing is bringing you pleasure. So I'm going to give you an example of that. Making my bed. So there was a time where I didn't get up and I make my bed, right? Because it conserving energy, right? So I would just get up, get out my bed, listen, ain't no need for me to make that bed up because I'm gonna get back in it later on today. All right. So it was my brain trying to conserve energy, avoiding pain, right? I don't want to do it, right? And it brought in pleasure, right? The pleasure part of that was I didn't have to do anything. All right. I moved in again with a friend, and then I moved in with my dad, and my dad makes his bed up every day. And so what I had to learn how to do was make my bed up. Guess what? Now my brain, if I don't make up my bed, now it brings me pleasure to make my bed up. It actually conserves me energy, because if I keep walking past my room and I see my bed not made, guess what? My mind is like, You didn't make up the bed. You got to make up the bed, right? So it's like in the back of my mind, it's like I'm using energy thinking about why didn't I make up the bed. So it's actually conserving me energy now to make up my bed, right? And then I'm avoiding pain by making up my bed, because like I said, if I don't make up my bed, it's like I'm frustrated. Okay, so that was me taking a behavior and changing it to work for me. And that is what we need to do in life. That's all life is about. And that's changing the story, right? I was able to change the story about my bed, right? From I don't need to make that bed up to making it up. And guess what? It feels more in alignment walking into my room with a made up bed. Because I have to say, even though I had a sophisticated story about not making up that bed, every time I walked in there and my bed wasn't made up, I felt like it, or just couldn't even bring company to my, don't want company to walk past my bedroom because my bed is a mess. Now I don't have that, right? And so this is again that shame thing, right? So we have to realize the areas that we're trying to hide, right? Why are we hiding those? Because maybe they're misaligned. If they're misaligned, we need to change our narratives about it. And then we need to start really working with the brain, all right? And then emotionally allowing our bodies to do what they're going to do, right? So that we can become the individual that we were created to be, all right? That we were created to be. Um, yeah, I'm at 110. I do got a couple of more things that I want to say. It's gonna take about 3 to 5 minutes. So we know that on Mondays, Mindset Reset Mondays in the summer, we are doing stories and triggers. All right. And stories, so I want to talk about some essential things around stories and triggers and releasing your false narrative. So your story is not your identity. All right. And this is why I need you to unbraid. Your story is not your identity. Your identity is that you are a divine person. What is divinity means? You have the ability to transcend limitations. All right. Right. That is the so you're a spiritual being having a human experience. Now, the story that you choose is the thing that you are walking, or that you're demonstrating. All right. And that's how you know what your story is, by your behaviors, by how you show up. All right. So what you believe or what you've been told about yourself, whether from your family, society, or past expectations, does not define you. It's just information, you guys. It's just information. It's not who you are at the core. So releasing these false narratives mean letting go of the things that have never been yours to carry. All right. Stories are learned, not inherited. All right. So listen, the things that you believe about yourself, like I'm not good enough, or I'm too much, or I'm too sensitive, or that's just who I am, right? They were learned. You were not born with them. All right. So when we think about things you've inherited, you inherited your nose. Okay. This is a gene. All right. So we inherit some things, and then we learn some things. And the story is something that you've learned, which is just how you know you can unlearn it. All right. Someone taught you these stories, and it takes time to unlearn them. All right. In a big part of the unlearning process is relearning something different. All right. So you were not born with limitations. All right. They were imposed on you. All right. So you're not born with the limitations that you have today. They were imposed on you. Another thing is your triggers show you where your healing is needed. Again, instead of looking at triggers as a time to retreat, I can retreat, right? I can retreat, but I need to retreat with a different message. All right. So when I'm triggered now, it's like, okay, what about that? I'm going to get curious. What about that made me feel like I wanted to shrink? What about that made me feel? Because again, triggers show you where healing needs to happen. So when something triggers you, it isn't a sign of weakness, you guys. All right. It's not your sign of weakness. It's an invitation for you to what? Heal. All right. So your triggers are like signals, and they're telling you where you still have these old wounds or these unhealed stories. All right. So if your trigger is simply a part of your story, it's simply a part of you in your story that really needs to be rewritten. All right. Um, Essentially, you have the power to change your story. All right. You don't need anyone's permission to rewrite your narrative. Now, you may need assistance. You may need help, right? But your story is in your hands, and you get to rewrite that. But simply acknowledging, by you get to rewrite that by simply acknowledging that you can change it. You take back the power that was, so when you acknowledge that you can change, you actually take back the power that was always yours to begin with. Now, this is the hard part, because remember, your story is braided into what? Into the fabric of your family, into the fabric of your relationship, into the fabric of your community. And so a lot of you have identified with your story so much that you think it's you. And that is the grieving, right? That is like, it's like this story now, I have to die to it. And that death, it does feel sad. And, and I long to do that thing, and I crave it. If you've ever, stopped, I don't know, eating sugar, or, used to be a smoker and you stopped smoking, or used to be an alcoholic, you don't drink anymore, or whatever, or you moved, right? There's this grief that comes, or this urge of wanting that. And that's just life calling for that. But as the driver, you get to say, no, oh, I'm sitting in this new story now. All right. All right. Because you have the power to really change your story. All right. And you can acknowledge that power, but know that activating that is some work. All right. Releasing old narratives require courage. Again, it's not about confidence, it's about courage. And that's just what, doing the thing. It's just about doing it. So letting go of old stories and beliefs, it isn't easy. So it takes courage, right, to really face these uncomfortable truths about yourself and your past, right? But courage is a muscle, all right? It's more, the more you practice doing something, the stronger you get and the more empowered you become. So again, this is not a one and done thing. All right? This is not a one and done thing. This imprint of this story have been with you for 30, 40, 20, 60, 50 years. All right? Now you're introducing this new part of you, this new story, and you have to know that with this new story, right, this old one is going to rise up. It's going to want to rise. And that's why it's a journey and not a destination, and what you're going to continue to pay attention to. All right. So you have to learn how to pay attention to the new story, and really focus on this new story so it can grow. Right. And then kind of not focus so much on this old part of you that you're letting die away. All right. So releasing old narratives requires courage. False narratives keep you stuck in the past. All right. That's why we call them false, because they just no longer exist. You're just no longer that person, right? So when you hold on to these old versions of who you were and what others told you, you keep yourself anchored to the past. All right. But the present is where your power lies. All right. You can only step into your future by letting go of the stories that no longer serve you. So a big part of the falseness of the story is what? Is because that was 10 years ago. That was 5 years ago, and you somebody different. That's all up until yesterday, and you somebody different now. And that's how we know it holds no truth, because this present moment, right, you can choose to be something very different. But if you keep only being what you knew yourself to be, then you're not giving yourself room to live in your truth. All right. All right. Because what you needed to be then is what you need to be then. And you're probably called to be something very different right now. All right. You're worthy. And that's why you're worthy of reinvention. So you don't have to stay stuck in the story of someone that someone else wrote for you. And again, it doesn't matter who that person was, your child, your mama, your siblings, your job, your community, right? You don't have to stay stuck in that story that someone else wrote for you, all up into who? Yourself. Because at some point you start to write that story for you. They gave it to you and you start to identify with it. All right. You get to reinvent yourself as many times as you need. All right. Every day you have the opportunity to really choose who you are and how to really show up in this world. All right. You get that opportunity, right? And that is allowing yourself to blossom, allowing yourself to be revealed today for what you need today. All right. your inner voice. But to make this happen, your inner voice must match your true self. So if you've been letting the inner critic detect your worth and your story, it's time to stop that. Listen, your true voice, the one that aligns with your higher self, will never tell you that you're not enough. And the last couple of things I want you to know is that the past doesn't define your future. All right. It's easy to think that because something happened in your past, it'll always be that way. All right. I want you to, and what's coming up in my spirit when I say that is I have scars on my body. All right. From things that happened in my past. The one thing about it though is that the pain that, that I felt at the time of that scar, I no longer feel that pain. All right. So I see the scar. I know what happened, right, at that time, but I'm not associated to the pain or the emotion. And a big part of the reason why we stay in our stories is because we're attached to that feeling, to that emotion, to that pain, to that pleasure, or whatever. And I'm saying, hey, just because you see the scar, just because you see it today, doesn't mean it still exists. The pain, the emotion doesn't exist, but you can bring emotion to it today. All right. And so that's a big part of us even learning how to release, feel our emotions and release them, and really being present with today and what today has to offer. All right. So the past doesn't define your future. All right. And I want you to know that the past can be a reference point, but not a life sentence. All right. It can be a reference point, but not a life sentence. So releasing false narratives mean acknowledging that your future is wide open regardless of what happened to you. So, yep, you got that scar. We see that scar, right? But just because you got that scar doesn't mean that you can't move forward in life. All right. All right. And last but not least, it's not about being perfect. It's about being authentic. And I know this word authentic is, it's one that I kind of shrug at too, because, you know, authentic, what does it really mean? What does it really mean to be authentic? All right. And I really think it just means being true. You know, one of the things in the Bible talks about, you know, to basically, you know, when God created Adam and Eve, he told them to be fruitful and multiply, right? And we know what the whole idea of being fruitful, right? So a fruit is what? A an entity that has the seed within itself. So an apple is going to have an apple seed, right? So this whole idea of be fruitful and multiply, it really means to keep putting you with that thing, that seed that God put in you, keep putting that out, right? That's the fruitfulness of you. So who are you? And keep putting that out into the world, right? And when you, and this is the authentic part, and this is the reason why it's so important to understand and live in your authenticity. Because if you're an apple, okay, but you keep trying to be an orange, then you're going against divinity, because the Bible say be fruitful and multiply. All right. And then, you know, trample down and subdue, right? Which means that you need to, problems are going to happen and you need to overcome those problems, or bring into, you know, bring control into chaos, bring control to the chaos that's going to happen when you are fruitful and multiplying. Okay. But this whole be fruitful and multiplies, we know that a few is a seed within itself. So the big part of life is you figuring out who you are so you can keep reproducing that. And that's how you're going to end up with the harvest. That's how you're going to end up harvesting the life that was created for you, because you're planting your seeds. You're being fruitful and being honoring this thing that God gave you to plant, to plant, to plant, to plant, to plant, and then it multiplies, and then you get this harvest back. All right. But if you, again, or if you are an apple, but you're planting oranges, or you're trying to be a grape, or you're trying to be a cucumber, because that is what life is saying. You know, you need to be a cucumber, you need to be a grape, but you know you're an apple, then you're not being fruitful because you're not planting what? Apple seeds. You're planting oranges and you're planting, and that ain't even your seed to plant. So even if the harvest came, you wouldn't even recognize it because it's not it's not of you, right? And so we need to understand, what are we? What seeds do we have? What is this fruitfulness that we're giving of ourselves, right? Is that in our voice? Is that in our presence? Is that, in our gift, and what that gift is? And then what is it going to require of us to be fruitful and multiply, so that we can subdue, right? So that we can bring control to the chaos, right? So we can bring some resolve to the conflict, right? So we can trample down any naysayer, right? Right? Because I'm fruitful, and I know that at that point, you know what? No weapon formed against me shall prosper, because I'm in my lane, all right? And I'm living at my own pace. If y'all see my shirt, lay out. All right. All right. So listen, these are the truths that I want you to walk away with today. Listen, the narratives you've been living under, they don't have to define you. All right. They don't have to define you. They just have to, you have the power to change them. And that starts with what? Awareness. That started with the awareness of the stories that's been holding you back. That's been holding you back. And that's just, and simply, your stories. All right. So once you begin to question these stories, you realize that you have no power, that you realize that they have no power over you, and that you are the author of your life. And remember, you don't have to do this alone. Okay. That is why I created Project Life. So you can come into those coaching labs. I did open the sessions back up. So if you do want to be a part of it, you can. You can come into the project. All right. There's a support system and tools available, like Project Life and other communities, right? We have other therapists within our region of the Great Lakes Bay region. You have uh, other coaches across this whole, United States, or if you're from a different country, right? Reach out and get some help. All right. Our biblical wisdom, Galatians 6:9. Let us not be weary in our good doing, for at a proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. All right, listen, you've been doing the work. Now it's time to really stop repeating the old narratives and really embrace the truth of who you are. Your effort will pay off when you step into your truth. All right. So here's how this ties into today's session: the challenge of letting go of false narratives. In today's lesson, we are addressing the stories that you've been carrying, right? And these stories that aren't yours and have been created by others, perhaps even right out of well-meaning advice, right? Like I say, I don't think our grandparents really intended to hurt our feelings or do something, or even so these stories were probably even given to us from well-meaning advice or from social pressures. Okay, so this verse really speaks to the importance of perseverance in doing the right thing, even when it feels difficult and exhausting. So letting go of the false narratives and really stepping into your truth takes time. Okay, it's easy to give up when faced with what? Discomfort, but this verse really encourages you to continue on your path of healing. As the result, your transformation and empowered truth will come if you don't quit. All right. If you if you have been told your whole life that you wasn't good enough, guess what? Or that you have to earn love, really rewriting your narrative is hard work. Okay. It is hard work, and it can feel like you're doing the right thing, but not seeing the right results. All right. So when you start to transform, it can feel like you're doing the right thing, but you're not getting the results. So this verse really encourages you to persist in your journey of unlearning these old stories. All right. Keep working on changing those false narratives, and your harvest of empowerment will come. All right. Again, that's Galatians 6:19. Let us not become weary in our good doing, for a purpose time. We will reap the harvest if we do not give up. All right. So don't give up in your good doing. Okay. And in your pursuit of changing your story. All right. Because you will reap the harvest of it. Matthew 11:28. This is our promise verse. Listen, come to me, all ye who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Listen, when we let go of our old stories, we make room for peace and rest. All right. The truth we've been longing for will bring us rest and restoration. All right. This verse really brings the promise of rest. So when you let go of these old narratives, you guys, and step into your authentic truth, right? You free yourself from the weight of false beliefs and societal expectations. So these false stories like I'm not good enough or I have to prove my worth, guess what? Are emotionally and mentally exhausting. By challenging these narratives and replacing them with truths, guess what? You are able to find peace. So the rest offered here is not just about this physical rest, but it's about this emotional and mental rest. All right. We can let go of the pressure to live up to someone else's narratives and really step into a place of peace with ourselves. All right. A call to really let go is really what this verse is helping us to see in the context of today's lesson. This verse is a divine invitation to really let go of the beliefs that burden you. All right. These beliefs that have been placed on you by others, and trust in the truth that in the truth of what of who you are. All right. So when you release these false narratives, you find rest. That's it. You find rest, not just in your physical sense, but in a deep spiritual rest from self doubt, from this shame, and from self rejection. So, both of these scriptures actually support the core message of today's lesson, right? The importance of not giving up on your truth and the rest that comes with letting go of these false beliefs. When you stop really trying to live up to other people's narratives and expectations of you, and you sit in what you know to be true about yourself. I'm not saying that it won't feel right. It won't feel heavy, but there is a sense of peace and ease that comes with that. Okay. There's a sense of peace of ease that come with that. And how do we put this into practice? What I want you to do is identify one belief about yourself that no longer serves you. I want you to write down where that belief came from and who told you that story. And then I want you to reframe that belief into a new truth that empowers you. All right. If you need a journal prompt, your journal prompt for today is, what story am I ready to let go of today? And what new narrative am I claiming for in my life? Your affirmation for today is, I am not my past. All right. I am who I choose to be, and I rewrite my story every day. All right. Setting our intention for today. All right. For the rest of this day, I release the old narratives that do not serve me and step into the truth of who I'm becoming. All right. And then your bonus challenge for the next 24 hours, I want you to practice rewriting the limited beliefs whenever it comes up and replace it with a new behavior. And then your call, your challenge, and your charge for this morning is, what truth are you walking away with? All right. That's the call I'm asking. And then your challenge is, what's the next step? What's the next brave step you're going to take to really rewrite your story? And then your charge is always going to be from me. Go shape your life. All right. Go shape your life. Listen, if this session resonated with you and you are walking away with some insight on today, I want you to drop a fire in the chat and let's celebrate our growth together. All right. Remember that growth membership is open if you're interested in it. I will see you tomorrow for Transformational Tuesday, where we explore the power of unlearning, the power of unlearning and how to heal from the narratives that no longer serve you. I want you to remember this. If you can shape it in your mind, you can have it in your life. And I want you to know that I love you. I love you. I love you. And I will see you tomorrow for that life lesson. All right. Till later.